Welcome to Lock It Down Sports. I'm your host, Locke Hoover. You can follow me on Twitter at Lock It Up Media. That's Lock It Up Media on Twitter. You can also check us out at E5280 Sports. That's E5280 Sports. And today on the show, what the Atlanta Braves gained from this trying season, the Pack getting denied, how schools really do when they change conferences. But first, I want to talk about the showdown from last week, the big one in the SEC. And that is, of course, Alabama, Georgia. And wow, first off, what a game. And what two completely reversed halves. I mean, those first four drives by Alabama, yeoman's work. I mean, first drive, easy touchdown that Alabama did to work down and score like a slicing through butter. Georgia's first drive tried to hit a big play and did once, but then couldn't connect on any other big plays and had to punt. Then Alabama's second drive, again, a big chunk play and an easy score. And I go, whoa, this could get out of hand in a heartbeat, which I didn't expect it to, but you blinked and it was 14-0 Alabama, and you're like, wow, this is serious stuff. I think those two drives kind of surprised Georgia, kind of shook them and shocked them too. And here's, I wrote down, how does Georgia respond after being punched in the mouth back-to-back plays? I mean, back-to-back drives, right? Georgia can't get off to this slow start again like they did against Clemson, can they? Because, and it looks like they are too now after Carson Beck's second interception on and his first interception on the second drive. What did Alabama do? They responded, paid it off with a touchdown. That's the first quarter. You blink, it's 21-0. You go, holy smokes. So we move to the second quarter. And that first drive in the second quarter, another touchdown by Alabama, as they went for it on 4th and 1 from the 30 or 40-yard line. They're up 28-0. And you go, no one saw this. No one expected this. And Georgia felt it. They did. And here's how you could see this in the game, how they felt it. I mean, Georgia was going for it in the second quarter, 4th and 1 at the 50. I mean, they're down 28-0 with 10 minutes left before half. To me, that showed desperation of, we need to make something happen. Let's see if we can make something happen here. Also screamed desperation and chasing early and often was on Georgia's score. Georgia scored that touchdown, and they went for two. Down 28-0, or now 28-6, to try to make it 28-8. Now, ultimately, of course, they didn't get to go for it. Weren't able to go for it because of that penalty. But right there reeks desperation to me of trying to chase points this early and get back into it somehow, some way. And you saw that. Also, Georgia was struggling to tackle Milroe. Before the half, he'd already had 100 yards on the ground with 5 minutes to go. They couldn't tackle him. And yet we saw some first quarter missed tackles from Georgia, very unlike a Georgia defense under Kirby Smart. But you saw it against a really good Alabama team. First half, once again, Carson Beck could not get comfortable. Could not settle down, could not get in the rhythm, could not get anything. But Alabama couldn't put Georgia away. And obviously that's expected. I don't think anyone expected Georgia to be run out of the building. They were in the first half, but not ultimately. Obviously, they weren't run out of the building. And interesting enough, I was talking with some people in that third quarter. Even as in control as Alabama was, dominating the game, after UGA scored that 2-point conversion, it was only a 2-possession game. And it's like, all right, well, Georgia's still in this thing. Let's see what happens if Georgia can get things going, continue to build on what they've done with Carson Beck in the second half, or as Alabama going to say, "No, what? Enough's enough. It's a 2-possession game. We're going to go score, and that's going to be the end of it." Obviously, that didn't happen. I mean, did anybody have Georgia taking the lead in that game late? Absolutely not. I don't think anybody, especially with how it started and how it was going for them, had Georgia taking a lead in that game. And then obviously Alabama responded and able to hold it off. But it was Georgia able to get those big chunk plays. With 2:30 left, the big chunk play led them to get back in that game. And then obviously the deep bomb to the 17-year-old makes that catch, one move, gone in the end zone for Alabama. But it was almost like reverse halves for each team. And you thought you would get that back and forth the entire game instead of 2 dominant halves by a team apiece. And that might be a little bugaboo for Georgia this year. We've seen it all year. These slow starts that Georgia's gotten off to. I guess their slow start against Clemson. You look at the final score, it's like they dominated Clemson. Yeah, but you actually watch the game, it was a slow, sluggish start for Georgia, and then they were able to pull it away and take care of Clemson. Same thing with Kentucky. It was slow, sluggish. The entire game did not look good, did not look sharp. They were able to get by Kentucky. But the way Alabama jumped on them and Georgia's slow start played bad, Carson Beck played bad, they couldn't overcome the deficit. Now, that's going to be something to watch again this year, later on this year with Georgia as the season continues on, as they've got Tennessee on their schedule and they've got Texas as well. They got the true UT and the fake UT still on the schedule. And Tennessee gets off, obviously, Tennessee, the real UT, gets off to typically a fast start. And you saw in that Oklahoma game, Tennessee can slow the game down now and run that football. At least they have against every opponent. Yeah, Georgia might be a different animal. But Tennessee can play a little bit different way this year, not go all the time. They can slow it down. kill some clock, or run the football, and they potentially could hang on and win a game against Georgia if Georgia gets off to a slow start. Because Tennessee is typically a fast start program and team. They can jump on you 7, 10, 14, nothing before you know it with some big plays and then a methodical drive. Or methodical drive, big play, and crap, it's 10 nothing, 14 nothing. And it's, 7 minutes left in the first half, our first quarter. You're like, whoa, where'd the time go? We're down. And then obviously Texas as well. They are the real deal. Whether it's, we'll see what happened with Archie, or if it's Quinn. Quinn says he's going to be back for the Oklahoma game. So good for him. But Georgia's also got them on the schedule as well coming up. They got a little bit of a break-ish against an Auburn team. Yes, it's a rivalry game. Auburn's got talent. They just haven't played well. I know it sounds crazy. They're a talented team that hasn't played well. Turnovers, not being able to run the football, just the quarterback situation. There's an issue there. Yeah, they played better against Oklahoma, but Georgia should be able to handle Auburn. Alabama's definitely got a break, obviously with Vandy coming up, but their schedule, they still got Tennessee on the schedule as well. 2 fast start teams potentially, and that's going to be a big game, tough game for all 3 schools as well. So that's kind of the lay of the land there of what's upcoming for these schools and just the start of how they are offensively as a club. Now, speaking of the start of something, I think the Pac-12 was trying to get started. They were trying to get rolling of being a potentially legit real conference by adding teams such as Memphis, Tulane, and South Florida. But they said no. And I get it. It was a toss-up for them to make sense. I think a few reasons for this, and they've kind of come out and said this. So the cost to leave the AAC exit fee is $25 million. The PAC was only willing to offer $2 million to get out as part of the exit fee. So they'd have to pay $23 million. Quick math there, and I still screwed it up. $23 million in exit fees. That is Memphis, Tulane, and South Florida. Proposal, they don't have a TV deal yet, but media right deal, 10 to 15 million ballpark, more in the lines of 10 million currently. Like I said, they don't have a TV deal. Warner Brothers rumored to be interested and potentially get the deal since they've got a lot of free space now with no NBA. No NBA deals on the book, so that opens up basketball for them, the Pac-12 basketball and Pac-12 football. And then also, they had to sign a 5-year grant of rights deal with the Pac-12. So they'd be locked in for a little bit for the Pac-12, the Pac, whatever you want to call it. I think then as well, there's just so much uncertainty too with this Pac conference of what are they going to be, What are they? They don't know. The Pac doesn't know. The Memphis, Tulane, South Florida don't know either. Yeah, they know the Boise, San Diego State, Colorado State, and Utah State are obviously leaving the Mountain West to go to the Pac. That still doesn't elevate them to a Power 5 school or Power 5 conference. It just makes them into the best G5 league. And that's scary, and I get that. I think also, too, those three schools want to get into the ACC. When and if the ACC expands, I think also the other situation they're watching is this Clemson and Florida State situation here with them fighting the conference about their grant of rights. Are they able to get out of the ACC? If they get out of the ACC, they're going to need schools. Memphis, Tulane, South Florida, kind of waving their, hey guys, how's it going? You need some partners? Now, the interesting thing is, would those three schools be a package deal to get into the ACC like they were basically for the Pac? Now, if it's only a 2 for 2, who's getting left high and dry? Is it Tulane? Is it South Florida? Is it Memphis? I think Memphis would be in. Then it's either Tulane or South Florida that would get left high or dry if it's a 2 for 2 deal. That's some wait and see as well. And then I think the other reason makes sense is the travel cost. I mean, that's a lot more travel costs to go out to Boise, to go out to Oregon State, to go out to Washington State, to go out to Colorado State, as opposed to what the AAC is in terms of costs and travel and expenses on that end. So that's, I think, some of it. Now, the Pac did just ask Gonzaga in basketball, which is a big get. Absolutely. Bring in a superior, top-notch basketball conference as well. So that could perk the interest of Memphis for the basketball part of the equation. And they're not completely ruled out of it, as they're keeping their options open. I just think the first initial offering of, I think the big thing for them was the exit fees. The $25 million exit fee was the big problem with them, as if the Pac bumps up their exit fee money, you can see it, because their athletic director come out and said, we're still keeping all our options open. That means they're still flirting. They're still open. They haven't completely ruled it out, but they nullified basically the first deal, the first offer to get them out. So it's a wait and see. As people like to say in this sports business, it's fluid. It's a fluid situation, and it's a wait and see. Who knows what tomorrow brings with these conferences and with these teams? It's fluid. And speaking of teams changing conferences, very interesting stuff and information. Burtman Murphy, excellent college football reporter and coverage of stuff. I highly recommend you going and checking him out and following him if you're not aware of his work already. Interesting stuff about teams changing conferences. And yes, we know why they change. Obviously, it's money. More money, more revenue, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But, let's look at the actual results of the conference and what they do, what they have done going to a new conference. And this is schools going from power conference to power conference, or a non-power conference, a G5 conference to a power conference. Whether that power conference was the Big East, to whether it's a conference, the Big East to the ACC, the we're in the non-power conference, a Mountain West to a Pac-12, etc. So in the past 13 years, 16 schools have changed or went to power conferences. Out of that, only 3 have 3 out of 16 have winning conference records in their first year. That would be Texas A&M in 2012, Louisville in 14, Nebraska in 2011. Two programs had 500 records or better, and 11 of the 16 had losing conference records. The two that surprisingly, this kind of surprised me, that have had that had 500 records their first year were Maryland in 2014 and Syracuse in 2013. As obviously both those programs have been pretty dreadful for the most part in the ACC and in the Big Ten. Maryland has gotten better of recent, but still dreadful, absolutely dreadful. The only school to have more winning seasons in conference than losing seasons was Utah. Coming from the Mountain West to the Pac-12, 9 of 13 seasons were winning seasons. Also 2 conference titles in that as well. The second best record was Louisville, had 5 winning seasons in 10 years. And then Pitt was next to have 5 winning conference seasons in 11 years. So that brings me to this. And I don't think this is going to be an outlier. This isn't even, I think, going to be equal or fair when it comes to these new teams going to the Pac-12, whatever it's going to be called, the Pac. Yeah, we know it's money. That's why they're going, obviously, and potentially hoping for an automatic qualifier. But their struggle is not going to be the same as it is these other schools, Texas A&M, Missouri going to the SEC. They don't have to deal with Alabama. They don't have to deal with Georgia. They don't have to deal with LSU, Florida. They don't have to deal with these guys, you know? Maryland having to deal with Ohio State, Michigan, even Michigan State, heck. It's different. They're going to an even playing field, really, if you ask me, as far as conference goes and talent level and players and schools and teams. Boise's just as good as Oregon State, Washington State. Colorado State can make a run. I mean, San Diego State, all even-ish close footing. So it's not a big leap and jump in talent and schools schools as far as that goes. So, yeah, he's of course going to do a comparison, but I mean, as far as what they do, but it won't be the same because they were not a power. They're not going to a power conference. They're just shifting to a different G5 conference that could potentially be a power conference. Now, something that wasn't very powerful was a Braves season. The 2024 Atlanta Braves season, yes, their postseason run has come to an end. Tough for them, but I had zero expectations for them coming in to this postseason when you don't have an offense that's capable of scoring more than 2 or 3 runs a night. On a good day, they scored 4. On a good day, but that was few and far between. Obviously, of course, then going to the postseason, your ace, you're going to be Cy Young Award winner, has been healthy all season, can't throw game 1, obviously in Chris Sale. So that's a tough start. And then Max Fried gets shelled and it's, it's over. But through all that, they did make the playoffs and they gained something very important throughout a rough 2024. And to me, that is 2 pitchers that they've gained. I think the first one, and you probably know where I'm going with this, pretty obvious, and Spencer Schwellenbach. Will receive Rookie of the Year votes. No chance. Absolutely 0 chance of winning. He'll probably be 4th or maybe even 5th. With Paul Skeens, Jackson Maryland, Jackson Chorizo as your top 3 guys. to potentially win Rookie of the Year. And it's a really good rookie class this year, without a doubt. But trying to find a fifth starter this season with rotating different guys in, you found a middle of the rotation arm, without a doubt, who potentially could be a top-end rotation guy based on what we saw this year. 8-7, 3.33 ERA, 123 and 2/3 innings pitched, 127 Ks and only 22 walks in a career-high innings. Going to be a very important piece in the rotation, obviously this year and in the future. Even more so in the future. Why? Because Max Fried, I'd say, is 98% gone. Then you've got Charlie Morton probably retiring. So you're down to Sale, Lopez, and Spencer Schwellenbach, healthy and ready to start the season. That's a good foundation. That's a good base. Then you got Strider, obviously, coming back. Does he start the season, regular season, on the IL, or is he ready to go to open the season? All reports show he's going to be ready to start the season, but still, where's he with his progress, with his throwing, come spring training, regular season time? So it wouldn't shock me if he does start the season on the IL. So that's a really darn good top four. And then your rotation is, you figured out whether it's I know Twitter's going to kill me, Bryce Elder. Maybe it's AJ Smith-Shawver, Herschel Waldrop. Maybe the next wave is starting to come kind of in the back end second group that Schwellenbach came from, in a Drew Hackenberg, who made it to AAA this year. Or do you sign a vet to be your fifth starter? Maybe Charlie Morton comes back. Maybe he's not done. Regardless, you're running him out there every fifth day, and you found him as a guy. And with that this year, he wasn't your first wave of guys. Your first wave I mentioned was Elder, AJ Smith-Shawver, and Herschel Waldrop. But no, Schwellenbach, they came up, and after a rough first month, pitched lights out down the stretch, and especially against good playoff teams and in your division, which is always nice. Against the Mets this year, hit a .86 ERA in 21 innings, so that's 3 starts. Against the Phillies, 2-0, 2.45 ERA in 18 1/3 innings. That's a good baseline right there against 2 of your division rivals. And not just division rivals, playoff teams. So a good foundational piece, middle of the rotation piece that has the potential to be a top of the line starting pitcher as he continues to mature, develop, and continue to get better. Now, the other guy they found, probably you're guessing where I'm going here too. The long curly-haired reliever, 10-year, a minor league veteran, Grant Holmes. What can you say about him? A valuable member to this bullpen who was an afterthought, absolutely afterthought, but had 2 good years in AAA last year and pitched well this year. And it's like, he was just a guy the Braves were going to bring up and then DFA or release. But they just needed a guy to throw some arm, some innings for a week or 2 weeks, maybe 3, as a guy, when they were injured and banged up. Well, you saw what kind of guy he was. Nice guy to plug in as a spot starter, could contribute, give you some solid starts, some solid innings. Long reliever. He was even using some important high leverage situations. We saw that throughout the year. And could potentially take over the Jesse Chavez role, who says he's going to retire at 40, I think he's 40 or 41. Said he wanted to pitch one more year, as in this year was being his last year he wanted to pitch. But he could take over the Chavez role, in a lot cheaper role. The Braves said they're going to add to the payroll this year, and they've already picked up the options of, to no surprise, Bummer, Ozuna, and Charles Darno. So we got decisions to make in the outfield. What are they doing with Ramon Laureano? He's arbitration eligible. They've got Schiller and Kelenic, obviously, as well. So some decisions, some situations they got to figure out and decide what they're going to do in that aspect. But Grant Holmes, a cheap, viable option in the bullpen next year and the next few years. And it's a good piece and a good slot for him and the situation he's in with the Braves. As always, you follow me on Twitter at Lock It Up Media. That's Lock It Up Media on Twitter. You've been listening to Lock It Down Sports. I'm Locke Hoover. I'll talk to you next week.